welcome to another episode of the Superbold podcast. I'm Fred Joyal, and I like to dissect the bold moves people have made and the bold moves they didn't make, and they built a regret from it and what they learned from it. And so I bring on all sorts of fascinating people with amazing careers, and today's going to be no different. I have Adam Cruz today, who has formed a company called The Healed Hustle. And it's such an intriguing name that I just want you to be curious about where that evolved from and what that means to you, and how you can benefit from what he's created. So we're going to dive right in. Adam, welcome to the episode.
Hey, thanks, Fred. Great to be here, and excited to learn from you as well, and to have a conversation about healing our hustle. So, thanks for having me.
It's great to have you. And so, Adam, give me your business background. What got you making money in life, basically? When did you
Yeah.
find your stride in your career?
Well, I probably feel most insecure about that thing because it's so untraditional. Most people have a path. They maybe identify that path younger in their years. They go to college, they do the thing, and then they enjoy the trajectory of that. Mine felt a little chaotic all the way back from going to three different colleges and not really knowing sort of where I was going to land. And then um, over the last decade, I've gotten to work in tech and start companies, which has been a lot of fun and a lot of learning. But the first decade of my career, I was in vocational ministry as a pastor in churches. And so two dynamically different sort of evolutions of my career. I kind of look at my life in these sort of phases, and phase was one of not making a lot of money, but learning the art of starting things from scratch, because we started it from scratch, and the journey of what
Wait, you started the church from scratch?
yes, me
Yeah.
and four other people. So
Now,
we took it.
was it a tent? Did you actually start in a tent? As a
Well,
one of
we
those firebrand ministers.
No, we actually were wanted to be very gutsy. In fact, we put up a billboard, and all the billboards said, I bought a domain, don'tmissit.cc. That's all it said, and it had a date on it. And we put them all over the city, and we just created intrigue. We uh, churches can be boring, and depending on your background and most of the listeners' background, we all have very interesting dynamic relationships with churches. And so we planted in a movie theater. And we planted in a movie theater and put billboards all over that said, don't miss it. And for the first 6 months, all we did was serve the community. So we bought down the price of gas at gas stations by $1 just to serve the community. That's how we spent our money. We didn't do any marketing for our own church. We dropped 50,000 Easter eggs from a helicopter onto a football field and invited the city. So we just came in like we want to be different. That we grew from 0 to 2,000 in 2 years. It's pretty wild journey.
That's fantastic. And uh, like, to create a church with marketing ideas is kind of brilliant. And also, as I grew up Catholic, and my primary experience of church was suppressing yawns for an
Yes,
hour.
yes,
Um, and so, yeah, I'm glad you were doing a little something more interesting and perhaps more impactful. And so
yeah.
now, first bold move, pivot completely out of the church industry, so to speak.
Well, that's a crazy story because that's all I had known for over a decade of my life, was that my identity was tied to that. That's what I thought I would do the rest of my life. And we sold our house in 2 days on Facebook because I was a designer and a creative. I created all the realtor flyers. I didn't want to pay them any of the percentages. So I created the realtor flyers and did the promotion strategy online, sold it in 2 days on Facebook. And we just uh, filled up our U-Haul and we drove to Boise, Idaho, and just moved. in the beginning of what would become a new company, but at the time was like a new idea, kind of crazy, and we took a risk, and that was our first big wild journey of into a new life, and really set the trajectory for the last 10 years of my life.
And so you got involved in the startup world in on the tech side. That was your transition, and found success there as well. Tell us. And now, was this more than one company that you
Yeah, so
started?
the first, yeah, we started a company called Zemi. A friend of mine called me and said, "What are you doing these days?" And at that time I was like, "Well, I just sold my house on Facebook and quit my lifelong career, so I really don't know, but I'm ready for a new conversation." And the timing was right, and there was some confirmation that we were headed the right direction, and so we started a tech company in the ed tech space. And grew that. Raised, we were a true startup life. Again, it's sort of 0 to 1. Me and a couple other guys, and we were able to raise our Series A and move out to the Bay Area and scale the team in San Francisco. And so I did that for 7 years, and then joined another startup that was a little bit farther down the road, that was acquired by Intuit after a few months of me joining the team. And so I thought I would last maybe a month, because I didn't ever work corporate. I'm a startup guy, and I like the hustle of building new things. And ended up staying 7 years and learning how to grow companies at scale. So kind of been on all the sides of the spectrum.
So uh, I want to go into the mindset that when you left the church, you had basically cleared the decks for yourself and were just open. And this is really part of the whole super bold mindset that I talk about. Is a lot of times you just say yes, not knowing how it's going to turn out at all, but trust something that it's going to be at least interesting. And it is so. Was that what were you feeling when you were saying yes? Were you going like, "Oh, this is going to be the greatest thing ever," or "What the heck? I'll try it." What was what was going through Adam's head, and what did you convince your wife was going to be all right?
Yeah, exactly. I was just gonna say, I think my wife would prefer that I don't do that, and that there's a little bit more of a plan. She doesn't always love the "we'll figure it out, build the airplane in the
In
air" kind
flight,
of
yeah,
mindset.
yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely a thing. But I will say that having a partner that is in like that is tremendous, and my wife has always been such an encourager. In fact, sometimes when I'm afraid, she's like, "Hey, we have one shot, like, and we feel like we're supposed to do this, you know." And I think for us, we had nudges. You learn to listen to the nudges, and you learn to trust those instincts, and 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 kind of understand like what the opportunities are. Most people have opportunities in front of them, but they can't identify them. And so it's like learning to identify what is the opportunity here. And for me, I'm a person of faith. And so there's a huge component of this that I don't know. So I'm just trusting that the the opportunities coming in front of me are supposed to be there, and we're supposed to lean in and learn how to trust the journey. And so that's what we did. We uh in fact, he called me, so what are you doing these days? And he said, I think I need you to help us build this company. And I said, I've been a pastor for 10 years, I don't know how to build tech companies. And he called a couple days later, and he said, man, I really think you're supposed to be the guy. And so I guess that persistence, of the ask, and us having the opportunity in front of us, made us go,
Now,
I could give
but
this 1 year.
yeah, yeah, right. That's what you thought. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
I'll do a limited engagement,
Yeah.
so to speak. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but you said something that I really love, and I want the audience to be thinking about this exact concept, listening to the nudges. It's
Mm,
like it's not a big message, it's not,
yeah,
God coming down and dictating the 10 commandments to you.
yeah,
But as you said, you're a person of faith, and it could be, a very spiritual thing, but it can also just be a mindset thing that you develop. It's like, be dialed in to these little messages that say, maybe say yes. You don't have
yeah,
to know how it's going to go. You just have to acknowledge that there's an urge there that's saying, try this, believe in yourself enough to step out of the plane and hope the chute opens, kind of
yeah.
thinking. Um, and do you feel like that evolved from being a pastor, or was that sort of a little bit of Adam's growth before that?
Well, I think a lot of people miss the opportunities in front of them because they're afraid of just taking the first couple of steps. And 0 to 1 is terrifying. It's not for everybody, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, Talk is cheap, and so a lot of us have ideas, and few people are able to convert those ideas and get traction behind them because that is a hard process. But so I realized that I maybe that's maybe just a wiring thing. I'm kind of wired for the journey of that adventure of because it doesn't always work out, and there's a lot of case studies and stories out there where it doesn't work out. Unfortunately, in my case, it did, and I would account that to not anything in me. I would account that to my faith of just listening to the nudges and trusting the relationships that come into my life and the conversations that we're having about what maybe God is helping shape here, and then just taking the steps that are necessary. What's the right next step for right now, and that's where you land. And um, doing the church stuff, I kind of knew what that journey would be like, and so I kind of knew what to expect with this business.
So, was there a time in your life where you did take a little bit of a leap off a high board, and there was no water in the pool? Did that ever happen in your earlier life?
Well, yeah, yeah, in a lot of ways, but for me, maybe in the unexpected ways. I've had this interesting arc of a story. We got to plant churches, we got to start tech companies, I got to work at a Fortune 100 company and lead teams, and all that was great. But underneath all of that, I was living at an unsustainable pace. And my ambition for success was actually wreaking havoc on my relationship with myself and with my wife to the point where even in the journey of building churches, I nearly lost my marriage and nearly lost my relationship. And so yet again, crazy enough, I guess I never thought of this. I had to take another bold move and decide I need to save my marriage. It's worth it. It's important. And I had to almost go back to the beginning of what will help us thrive in our relationship. And so to answer your question is like the emptiness wasn't maybe so much in terms of like financial or the business not working. It was actually that the business was working, but the sustainability of my personal life wasn't able to sustain that mission for very long. And I had to completely learn a new model and reset how I actually showed up.
Yeah. So, in the success that you were having financially and in business as an entrepreneur was actually a failure
Yes.
on the other side that you
Yeah.
had to recognize, because a lot of people get trapped in the addiction of success
Yeah.
because it's thrilling and it's satisfying and it's something to dive into every day, but you develop this awareness that I'm doing real damage, and
Yeah.
you were able to break away from that and make a bold move and abandon that success. That's really hard for people because in America it's all about the capitalistic success. You're
Yeah.
measured by by the cars and the houses and
Yeah.
the the the, the watches and the the schools you can send your kids to and all that, which is all great stuff, but it's not everything by a lot. And if you're sacrificing family and marriage and time with your kids and your health, that it's a failure in my mind.
Yeah.
You have snatched failure from the jaws of success, so to speak.
Yeah.
So so tell us tell us the creation of the healed hustle that is obviously where this came from.
Well, I kept, I'm an ambitious person, and I recognize that we all have to hustle in life. But what I was wrestling with personally in my broken, um, messed up life I had created and didn't know how to fix is I just had this question at my core: is ambition and sustainability possible together? And I kept seeing it like a spectrum. On one side, you have ambition. On the other side, you have sustainability. And we are all either moving like somewhere along that spectrum. If you want ambition, you can't have all these other things. If you want sustainability, well, you're not going to be successful. And I started to look at it like a quadrant. What is the relationship on an X and Y axis to ambition and sustainability? And if you have low ambition and low sustainability, that starts to look like just ineffectiveness. And if you have high sustainability but low ambition, that just is really comfort. And if you have high ambition and low sustainability, which is most of the guys like myself and who we talk to, that's where you have chaos. And if you have a high degree of ambition and a high degree of sustainability, I was like, that's where you have a healed hustle. And so I started to kind of unpack, what does it actually look like to do that? Because if you can launch, but you can't last, who cares? And I think a lot of us are addicted to the launch and the ambition and the journey, but we're not understanding. In fact, we'll obsess over how to make our business last at the neglect of how to make our life and our health and our relationships and to be doing the very mission that we have for the next 20 to 30 years, And how many leaders do we know that were once great and couldn't sustain it? And for some, it ends very tragically. And I had personal touches to that of people taking their lives and stuff. And so it's for some, it can be that extreme. For others, it's not that extreme. It's just you're in this addictive cycle that you can't get out of. And so what does it look like to actually be ambitious and sustain?
Yeah, if you can launch and last, you have to be able to acknowledge what you're doing that's not lasting personally. Again, you may be really good at making the business, launching the business and making it last, but
Yeah.
at the sacrifice of a really lasting personal future, health,
Yeah.
relationships, all those things. And and eventually the success becomes hollow, because you realize
Yes.
that you're actually the business will last and you won't.
Yeah.
And
Well, and if you
so
lose your peace, it's not worth it. Like you've lost. If you've got profit, but you have no peace, you've lost, to use your words, like you failed. And
yeah,
we are all, there are so many of us sacrificing everything. And I target mission driven people. Like, I mean, we could argue that everybody's mission driven, but I think some people intrinsically have more of like a mission driven sort of approach. You might find this in the particular type of business you're running, obviously, myself in faith communities or in like nonprofits or whatever. The problem with mission driven is you're all in. It's like an all in mindset. You give everything for the sake of this mission succeeding. Um, and sometimes it leaves me going, why are you actually really doing this? And that's where I started to unpack uh, the healed hustle really gets at what is actually your motivation. And I think a lot of us are afraid to look at that because of what's underneath our actual true motivation.
yeah. I mean, I have a good friend who his mission really in life is to be the best dad he can possibly be. And so his job has always been secondary.
Wow.
And he could have made much more money. He's a really smart guy. He's
Yeah.
incredibly likable, and is a really skilled salesperson. But he's always dialed it back, and his son has always come first. And I think he gets to look at his son is almost 18 now. He gets to look at those 18 years and realize, had I devoted my time to work, my son would be going off to college and I would barely know him and
Wow.
he would barely know me. And so he doesn't look at his lack of success as we would label it. It's like, oh, you could have made hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like you could be VP of this organization
Yeah.
or president of that one. And, he, he doesn't have an ounce of regret over that
It's
because
beautiful.
he he knew what his mission was deeper than financial success
Wow.
and
And I think for a
business
lot of
success.
us, that comes from like a broken identity. Like for me, it was like I needed the validation and I was hungry for the validation. And it's sad that we will sacrifice our kids or to use your friend's sake, like we'll sacrifice what matters most to get what we need most. And, and until we heal that, it's I met a guy when we first moved to San Francisco to start Zimi. Uh, I met this gentleman in a coffee shop, and he was done well in his life. He had sold 4 companies and done very well. And so we were just we were young punks and didn't know what we were doing and trying to get this tech company off the ground. And I just remember asking, "What advice do you have for us? We're just getting started." And he looked at me. I'm expecting this 4 exits, right? This profound like message, and he just looked at me and said, "Adam, learn to enjoy the journey." And I said, "Okay." And he said, "I'm on my 4th marriage, and my kids hate me." And he said, "I'd give all of my success away to have them back." And he said, and I said, "Man, you should write a book." And he said, "Nobody would read that book." And I said, "That's the problem with our dang society right now is we're reading how to 10x your sales team, how to 10x your efficiencies, how to 10x your marketing, 10x this, 10x that. Everything is about strategy and growth." And look, I've started 3 companies. I get it. Like I understand ambition and the need for all of that. It's all important. I'm just like I was just passionate about what does it look like to actually enjoy the journey along the way. And so here I am 10 years later, I guess, writing the book. So we'll see how that all plays out. But yeah, I want to come alongside guys like myself, um, that 10 years ago just they wanted to make impact on the world. They just were uh broken in why they were doing it. And until you heal why you're doing it, it really, I see too often that the very mission you're building eventually becomes a mistake. And I hate that for people, where you wish, man, I wish I just never would have started this church or this ministry or this nonprofit or this business because it now has become a mistake. And it doesn't have to, but for a lot of us, it becomes that.
But really, that what you're talking about is, instead of just saying how can I 10x my uh, profit or my revenue or my team or my business size, how do I 10x my joy? How do I
Yeah.
10x my fulfillment? How do I 10x my impact on the world in a positive way? Uh, and and how do I 10x myself as a spouse, as a parent, as a friend, as a citizen, as a member of a community? That's it. I think we need a lot more of that because, as you say, it's an obsession with 10xing, and it does. It's almost like it masks that wound, that brokenness to have all of that success because you got the private jet and you got the Porsche and you've got 3 homes, and it all sort of seems like it's okay, but a lot of times I think the more of that you have, the more you think, well, this is supposed to be great, so I have to. Why am I not feeling that way? Maybe I
Mm,
just need more of it. Maybe I need a
yeah,
longer jet, a big, more,
that's
an
a good point,
additional home. You know,
man. It's so true. It's like we we get locked into the idea that more is better, and I actually think it's a bold move to take it seriously. Take your life as serious as you take your business. You obsess over the OKRs and the all of the different business metrics that go into our sales funnels and our strategies, and are they working efficiently, and our conversion rates. Like, we look at all of that, we take it so seriously, but we won't look with that kind of precision at our own life. And honestly, because we're terrified. I think, if we're honest, it's like, I don't want to look under there. It all work out. And we get to a point eventually where most of us, because we're so driven, the worst thing that can happen is that you are successful. And typically that is what happens. You are successful. And so then you get to a point where it's called, I call it the ambition trap. And this is like, I mean, there's a lot of examples I'll use, just for the sake of, probably everybody knows, like Lance Armstrong, for example, one of the greatest cyclists in the world, who gets to this point where you're at the top, and and at this point, like, nobody can know, like, what I'm really doing and what I'm really struggling with. You're trapped, so you just ride it out. You ride it out until the whole thing comes crashing down. And then he's famous at one of his first interviews coming out of his big exposure was, "I've never felt more free." That's the invitation that we all are invited into, is that freedom without the collapse, but it takes a bold decision to actually be somebody that takes that serious, um and just as serious as everything else.
yeah, as you say, they don't want to look at it. That's where people
Yeah,
get stuck, is they don't even they're afraid of that. They're actually more afraid of that than failing in the business or making a mistake
yeah,
in the business,
absolutely.
and take it. So they're willing to take all sorts of risks, but they're not willing to take the risk of sitting down with their significant other and saying, honey, where am I off course here? What am I
Yeah.
not giving you that you need? Where's your OKR on your marriage? Uh,
That's good.
it's like, maybe you need that.
A monthly business
Okay,
review with our spouse.
yeah, and what's your OKR as a parent? What's your OKR as a member of the community? Uh,
Yeah,
and I think that's it. It's almost, that's a language they can relate to. It's like, yeah, uh, score yourself on that this month.
yeah.
And so, all right, so you have created the healed hustle. What is it?
Yeah, so the healed hustle is really my journey of learning, uh of learning to answer that question: is ambition and sustainability really possible? And the answer is, it is, but it requires intentionality. And so what I've created is, just essentially a workshop that starts with an assessment where people can actually take inventory on their life. That's the thing we're most afraid of, honestly, is just taking some inventory on our life and really getting a pulse check on, like, where am I in terms of my sustainability? And then the the thing is we're all a mess. And I'm writing all of this and creating all this, and I have to practice it all the time. Like, it's not something you graduate from. It's kind of funny because us kind of business minded people, we think in terms of milestones. And so it's like, okay, I'm going to do this healed hustle, and that's my milestone. And I realize, I met with my counselor years later, and he just reminded me, Adam, you just keep doing the work. And I hated that answer, because it's like, Oh,
Where's
you
my
have to.
exit strategy
Where's my exit
on my personal
strategy?
life? Right.
Yeah. And it's like, man, what I'm talking about is a way of life. It's a way of thinking. It's a way of being that is different than the way you are working now. And my personal history of that is comes from a root lie that I had as a young kid. And that lie was that God made me bad. And for all of us, there's often a core lie that's driving us. Now it could come from some childhood trauma moment, or it could come even later in life, or a failure that you had. I'm not enough. I don't have what it takes. But there are mindsets that we have and belief systems. And for me, mine was that God made me bad. And so I had some events happen in my life that continued to confirm that, which what happened is then the worst place I could go is into a church and watch it grow, because it became the platform I used to prove that I wasn't bad, to prove that I was good. That motivation isn't, oh, dropped the earpiece.
Yep, I'm
That
back.
that motivation isn't sustainable, because it's rooted in a place of trying to validate and prove. And so I wonder, from a lot of guys, what is at the core root of your motivation? If you're really honest, is it to prove somebody wrong? Is it to validate that you have what it takes? Why do you do what you do? And it may not be that the what needs to change, it's why that needs to change. You can have the right what with the wrong why, and it'll kill you. So the healed hustle walks guys through. It's weird. I'm like, I sit at this intersection of business and counseling, but I'm not a counselor and I don't pretend to be. But I invite guys into a conversation that maybe we haven't had, to really get at like the core drivers for our motivation. And they usually come from a belief system that's driving our motivation for our mission and determines whether we'll be sustainable or not. So that's what the healed hustle walks you through.
I love this idea of you might not even have to change your what, but
Yeah.
change your why. I think that uh, my partner and I, when we created 800 Dentist, we had a what, which was to make a very successful dentist referral service, but our why was to create a great place to work. In some ways, it was
Wow.
a little bit selfish, but because we knew we had to go there every day. So it was like we've had shitty jobs. We've been
Yeah.
shitty employees because of it. Um,
Yeah.
and and so that was the number one core value of the business way before people were talking about core values was we wanted everybody to win, the employee, the customer, the public that we were serving to help them find the right
Wow.
dentist and be healthier, and we wanted we wanted to benefit as well. Um,
Yeah.
but all of those things had to happen, or it was off the table. The activity or the direction was off the table. And because of it, we had a tremendous business. We had 250 employees. Many of those people will talk about it as the best job they ever had.
Wow.
Uh, and and so we succeeded at that because I think our why was in place,
Wow.
mostly out of default, right? Is we knew what we didn't want because we had it. We
Yeah.
didn't want to be the jerk boss or the demanding enterprise that sacrificed the customer winning for the company to win. He had been a stockbroker and he had said like he quit it to come work and start the business with me because he couldn't. He says, I'm tired of losing money for people so that I can make more money, because that was a
Mm.
lot of the formula. And so
Yeah.
our so that this idea that maybe your what's fine, but your why is affecting it so that it's not as uh, fulfilling and satisfying as it can be. But also I kind of love this idea. It's like we're stuck in our personal life. We don't get the end game. We don't get the exit strategy. We don't get the we went public, we sold, and we got a payoff, and we got economic freedom. We got to keep showing up every day to try to be whole, and that that's some scary stuff.
It is. It can be because I mean, these, it's amazing how much success it's a powerful driver because success validates a lot of things in our identity. It validates importance, it validates significance, it validates we have what it takes, capability. Like there are some core things that don't belong in our identity, but man, success is a fantastic replacement, and it wants to be the driver's seat for that. When in reality, uh, what is a good life, and what does it look like to actually redefine what success actually looks like. And so one of the exercises I take guys through is actually writing a life plan. And the life plan, yeah, it'll include some things that you want to achieve in your life, but your life plan, we help them actually put OKRs and metrics into a life plan. What does it look like to have a life plan that you want and that you're going to be proud of in 10 years? And so walking through that with intentionality.
Okay, so how can somebody get involved in the healed hustle? What's their pathway in?
Yeah, so one of the first steps the guys could take is just to take the assessment. We have a free assessment online that's 35 questions, and it touches the 7 hidden variables of success. And so you can go to you can go to thehealedhustle.com, take the assessment. It'll give you a score on the 7 variables of life: your beliefs, your motivation, your pace, your behavior, your routines, and your uh, outlook, and your community. And so those 7 areas, it'll give you a score, and then would love to, yeah, have a conversation, a free call, just to walk through that and where you feel like you need the most help.
So if you're listening, it's the healed, HEALED hustle.com.
Yep. .com.
Um,
Yes.
yeah, so it's the past tense of the word heal, as in heal your body, heal your mind, heal yourself,
Yeah.
healed, ED. So yeah, check that out. And I might have to take the answer to the 35 questions myself, Adam. Here, I'm gonna have to go find out what if my OKRs are off, because I'm pretty sure they are. But I have a tendency to figure out how to skew the test results as I answer the questions. I figure out what the
Yes.
when I take those personality tests now, I know how to alter them so I come out looking really good. Um,
Yeah.
but Adam, this has been an awesome conversation. I mean, these are tremendous insights for people, and I hope this inspires everybody listening to be willing to take that look, to not be afraid of that self examination, because the clock is running, time is running out. You don't know how long you're going to be in this game, and you don't want to be looking back at 50 years going, I should have done it a different way.
Yeah.
Start doing it a different way now.
Yes.
So thank you, Adam. Great conversation. Everyone, share this conversation with people you think would benefit from it, and think about how you can bring real joy and satisfaction and fulfillment in your life, and have a great impact on the world, and heal that hustle of yours.
Yeah.
Adam, thank you.
Thank you, Fred. It's great to be here.
And everyone, share the episode if you like it. If you really like it, review it. If you don't like it, be quiet.